really happy to have with us Andre Tyler from HSBC. So hello, Andre, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good. So can you tell us a bit about your role at HSBC, the transformation project, and also probably something about HSBC that we don't know?
So I lead the reporting, analytics, and data migration team on the Fusion program at HSBC. If we look at HSBC, household name, we have, we're one of the top 10 international banks, 235,000 employees, 40 million customers. But I wanted just to share something that maybe people hadn't heard before. And I only heard this about 2 weeks ago. So all financial institutions have been at the center of maintaining stability during the current crisis. But HSBC was singled out by Euromoney for our focus on innovation and supporting customers. Lovely story, and if you look at the numbers, I mean, they're quite staggering, the amount of relief for personal lending, payment holidays. So that's something I didn't know 2 weeks ago, something maybe you didn't know about HSBC. So within HSBC, we have a very large program that's deploying Fusion ERP globally. And we are trying to set up, amongst other things, a single cost ledger for over 80% of our cost base. We're live in a number of countries, Switzerland, UK, India, Hong Kong. We're going live in many more. And we're deploying financials, procurement, expenses, and recharge and billing. And that we have quite a fantastic base of data that's in there. So I had a look yesterday, and we have 180,000 employees provisioned on Fusion ERP. We have nearly 2 million invoices, over 880,000 individual employee expense reports. And what we need to do is we need to give the business access to that huge wealth of data so that they can drive insights, reduce costs, improve operational efficiency.
So I can imagine, Andre, that with such a large implementation and this huge initiative about transforming the cost management at HSBC, you probably face some challenges, right?
Yes. When I started in the role 2.5 years ago, the program was well advanced already. And that initial phase of the program did not prioritize reporting and analytics as a self-contained, consolidated initiative or piece of work. So as a result, we had very much a focus on operational reports. So 130 customized operational reports, and only 3 OTBI self-serve dashboards, which were very rarely used by users. We did have a data warehouse. It was an OBIA implementation, but it had been implemented in such a fashion that it suffered from the performance of the data refresh that was weekly and sometimes failed, and the performance of the 3 dashboards that have been created. The lag, the performance in time meant that there was 0 take-up from users of those dashboards on the OBIA data warehouse. So what this all meant, and I think many of your other customers will face this as well, is that we had a proliferation of extracts. And these were being taken by users and feeding downstream systems, whether plain Excel, Power BI, Tableau, Click. And those silos then face their own challenges, that they're taking extracts where the security and the data access is not perfect, sharing on SharePoint with simple passwords. There's also the fact that the understanding of the data and the manipulation of the data meant that sometimes dashboards that came out of those siloed BI tools were incorrect or were slightly different or had a slightly different cut than they should. So as a result, what we did is we wanted to implement a proper, centralized, Fusion-specific data warehouse and analytics capability.
So I guess, it's true that I have heard from many of our customers facing challenges with operational reporting and having these issues that you are mentioning here. So what did you do to actually solve these problems? And what was your strategy for analytics at HSBC?
Yeah, we spent a significant amount of time with the Oracle pre-sales team, and they gave us input into our technology analytics strategy. And once we'd decided, we looked in the market and we looked at all the analytics tools that were relevant to us, and we chose Oracle Analytics Cloud, ADW, and the object storage. That's the combination that we've gone with. Once we'd signed the contract, within 4 weeks, we'd set up the production and non-production environments. And as soon as those environments were set up, 4 weeks later, we deployed our first set of CXO dashboards. So published dashboards aimed at CFO, COO community, giving a summary of general ledger costs, employee expenses, and purchase orders. We then took the next step, which was to give a wider community the ability to create their own dashboards, tweak dashboards, and self-serve. And that again was for all three key areas: costs from the general ledger, employee expense, and invoices and purchase orders. And what that meant is that people could run their own tailored report or even visualization, and they no longer had to go through intermediate teams. And what really struck me when I first started is that some teams were waiting for the 21st of the following month to get their cost information for that month. No longer. The data warehouse is refreshed twice daily. At most, the data they're looking at from the self-serve, from their own tailored report, is 12 hours out of date. And then what we've done really recently, a couple of key members of my team, they've taken the next step, which is to deploy a machine learning algorithm. And we've pointed that at invoices. We then widened it. It's 80% plus accuracy. And that's being used by the head of AP in Canada and hopefully by more AP teams to ensure that we don't pay that second duplicate invoice with all the consequent operational process to reverse that payment. And the key thing that I'm delighted about is that when I started the role, reporting analytics was seen as a bit of a miss. Comments from senior stakeholders of the lack of MI that they were receiving. And now, having implemented this platform, when we go to new countries to deploy Fusion Insights, which is our version, which is our name for Oracle Analytics Cloud, the data warehouse, and object storage, is seen as one of the key benefits of deploying Fusion into a country: the transparency, the access to the data, the self-serve.
Wow, that's quite amazing, Andre. The first thing is that you were able to achieve this in 4 weeks, to set up a governed analytics platform for your finance users. Second thing is you provide self-serve to those users as well, so they could create their own dashboards and analysis. And the third thing is that you went to the next level with predictive analytics, with this machine learning model to identify duplicate invoices. So that's really amazing in such a short period of time. So if you had to do this again, Andre, what would be the 3 things that you would do for sure again?
So 3 things, 2 that we did, 1 that I wish we had done. So if I did this again, and I hope I will, start small and fast. So we didn't wait for the perfect requirements. The business didn't know what was available, what was possible. So if we waited for those requirements, I'd still be here waiting. We went there very quickly to a targeted stakeholder group, showed them the speed, the performance, what was possible. And that then drove future requirements, which helped us with the self-serve, the templates that we give our data champions. So start small and fast, which is often said, but absolutely worked for us. The second thing that we did that has worked really well is a small group of experts. So my team is responsible for, well, the requirement capture, the design, development, the implementation, the management of prod, so incidents, we do the training, the provisioning of users, and having that DevOps mentality, a single team with people who I'm really lucky to have worked with in the past at Deloitte. Many of them come from Oracle as well. Working with that team, single team, means that you can do things extremely fast. And then the third thing I wish I had done, even though we have spent quite a lot of effort on supporting our users, doing guidelines, training, communications to them. We do fortnightly data champion clinics to help those users who are creating their own dashboards and visualizations so they don't get stuck. Even though we do all that, we could still do more. And if I did this again, I would invest and have a dedicated person or a couple of people just on communications and training.
Well, that's really interesting, really inspiring, Andre. Seriously, so thank you for this analytics journey and sharing this with us and with the audience.